here to discuss all things NRL and anything sports related. Please give a warm Aussie g'day to the footy fanatic and America's own Corey Jackson in Outside the Sheds.
Greetings and salutations and welcome back to Outside the Sheds. Shedheads, I hope you've had an incredible week. I know that your shed, Adamus, is a little amped, a little pumped up, about ready to fly back in a matter of hours. I guess back to my hometown, I guess you would say that. So I'm pretty excited about that. I've got some people that I need to see, but I can't go anywhere until I take care of my other family. And that is you, Shedheads. So we have to come in here. We have to attack Outside the Sheds. We have to break down this crazy world of rugby league, the world that never lets us forget that it's number one in a lot of our hearts. Okay, besides our misses and misters and whatever the heck, your children. I've got the kennel here. I got the zoo. It is the game that keeps giving. I don't remember getting into the game back in 2010. All of the stuff that happens outside of it. I know it existed, Shedheads. We're human beings. We're all doing crazy stuff. But I think it's just the social media era, this new world that we live in where your neighbor knows when you're going to the bathroom and they do not have a camera inside your house, I don't think. It's just kind of crazy. And so because of that, we have stories nonstop. Last week was probably the most slow that I can remember that we didn't have something to really, really dive into on the 40-20. But again, I said this to you then. It was not going to stay that way. It was not going to stay that way at all because we're dealing with rugby league. We're dealing with the NRL. We're dealing with an over-the-top product that produces time and time again. And once again, it's done that and laid our plate full with a buffet of story and intrigue. Now, before we go into the story and intrigue, let's go back and cover round 7. Now, I know your Shed Adamus has no problem talking to you time and time again when he's doing well. Well, I also am a man. Not Mike Gundy man, if any of you know what I'm meaning when I say that. But I'm a man, and I will tell you when I did not do well, and 3 for 8 is not doing well. We're still 34 of 54 for the season, so we're still clicking around 63%. We need to get those numbers up. But again, that is what just intrigues us and makes us love the game so much because no matter how much you think you know what's going on, it humbles you in so many different ways because you just don't know what's coming down the track. You really don't. Let's start it off with round 7. Sea Eagles 38, Cowboys 6. Here's a game again that right out of the bat, it was an aluminum bat to the back of my head because Manly makes it 3 on the trot. Fosball is kicking in. I cannot believe I'm calling Manly Fosball and that Kieran Foran is the head coach of the Manly Seagulls. I really can't. I'm very happy for him. I'm intrigued by it. It's good all the way around. I hope Manly keeps this going. I hope they keep this drive going. I think it's brought a lot of people some energy back into the Northern Beaches. It's really, really fun to see what's transpiring there. But as happy as you are to see them winning 3 on the trot, I know not everybody, because don't forget the sign that I remember seeing at the grand final, Manly hates you too. I understand. But how incredible is it, after watching the game that we watched there, how bad the Cowboys were? How bad they were. I'm saying, after winning 4 on the trot for them, everybody was talking how Toddy Payton had saved his job. This team has strike, they have defense, they have youth, they had a good luck story. Jackson Purdue signs his extension, and then they go and lay this egg, and it was bad. I think the first half, again, it goes down as the worst completion percentage in NRL history for a club. Think about that. There's been some bad sides. St. George just called and said they're laughing, all right? There's been some bad sides out there. But they look like a team that was 0-7. Not like a team that had caught fire, found their pace, found their groove, and were just moving. I am more shocked about that game even more than the Eels upset, which we're getting ready to talk about, because the Cows look like they just didn't look interested. They didn't look intrigued. They didn't look like they were ready for the fight, and it was at home. That is the other thing. It was at home, and they lay that. Like I said, I know that it was an early game in the week. And the stadium, because a lot of people travel from long distances to come to Townsville to support the Cows, they weren't able to do it. It was still the work week. But really, to have that type of a laying of an egg, it just calls everything into question. And now they're talking, is Todd Payton still safe? After just last week they said that it looks like he's trucking along. So, like I said, great game for Manly. Cows, I don't know what you're doing. But 3 on the trot for Foreign's boys, and they're looking good. They really are. They really are. Now, I know the elephant in the room is, will they continue to look good with Turbo going down with another hamstring? We're not going to go into that really deep right here because I've got a deep dive on Tommy Turbo and what this man has been through, and maybe what his future may look like after this last setback and injury. But big victory for the Seagulls as they keep trucking along, trying to get back into that 8. Raiders 26, Storm 22. What a crazy game. A game that you would have never ever thought that you would say afterwards that the Melbourne Storm had now lost 5 in a row. Okay? Because it was crazy enough saying 4 in a row going into the game. But this is only the 3rd time in the history of the organization that they've lost 5 on the trot. Corey Horsburgh tried to change that because the Raiders were flying. Horsburgh gets sent to the bin, and it becomes a different game after that. I think it shows to me a lot about both teams' mental area that they're in right now. Because before, if Melbourne would have got back on top of a team like that after coming back from being behind like they were, you would see teams crumble. They would say, oh, here comes the Storm. And it just knocks all the stuffing out of that team, all the fight, all the vigor, everything they had going into the game, that the inevitable is happening. The Melbourne's coming back over the top, and they're getting ready to put us to the sword. But that was not the Raiders at all. And that's why I say this game is so big. One, when Melbourne does that, they get this belief in them that they can't be beat. But what we saw creep back in is that they still don't have that confidence yet to put teams away. They still have that confidence, that hangover, that problem of finishing the story. There you go, Cody Rhodes. I had to say that, with WrestleMania just finishing up. I had to throw some type of ode to the great sport of professional wrestling. You're welcome, Dom. But so that was one thing. But then you look at the Raiders, a team that just took the competition by storm last year. Wait a second, did I just say that? I did. Took the competition by storm, not Melbourne Storm, but by storm. And they just rode that out. They were young, there was an energy about this team. Willow was losing his mind. It was great times in the nation's capital. They hadn't found that magic yet so far this season. That game right now might have just reinstilled that strike in their mind of what they need to do to finish something, to close something down. Because to come back after losing the lead like that and letting Melbourne back in, and to come in and put them away and to take this thing, it shows me a lot. It shows me a lot about both sides, like I said. And I think what's really, really interesting, both these teams have a crossroads game coming up this week. Can the Storm right the ship? They've never lost to the Bunnies at home. That's who's coming in. The Bunnies are on strike right now. They are looking good. And then you've got the Raiders, who I think might have got that confidence back. They might have that swagger that they'd been missing early on, but they're going to the 8th one in the world to take on the Tigers. And can they continue to ride that wave of emotion? Because the Tigers are going to be hungry. They know they're going to be ready for the fight. So it's going to be interesting to see what these two teams do to parlay this result that they had. And does one of them lift it? And does the other one kind of remember who they are? Very, very interesting. And like I said, we're all about the story. And we're going to get it here in another week again. Panthers 23, Dolphins 22. The Iceman a cometh. Do I need to say any more? Nathan Cleary putting a little juke on and slotting the kick in Golden Point. A game that I was sitting on my couch and I was actually sweating watching them play at the top end. And I think I've told you about Mrs. Shedadamas and I when we went to Darwin and I thought I was going to die. And this is a guy that lives in Texas, right? Oh, I just gave away my base of operation. Anyway, this is a guy that lives in Texas. And I'd never felt anything like that. I've been to Miami. I've been to the Dirty South before. It was insane. It was insane how freaking humid we were walking. And man, listen, you're a strong folk that live up there and that can handle that and live in there day in and day out, because I was suffering. Anyway, enough talking about 90%, 106% humidity or whatever. We got a game. But it makes you wonder, when you think about this game, what's going on with the Panthers? I know the revenge tour continues. Now they've got Finn on the plate. But giving up an 18-point lead like that to a side that is coming off their bye week, coming off being able to sit up and totally put the crosshairs on the Penny Panthers as this is our target going forward, you really sit back and you go, wow, okay, what is happening here? Because besides the magic mustache, Herbie Farnsworth running around and stealing balls from everybody, that really made you kind of sit back and think what's going on. And I know McLean wasn't there in the game and all of that, but I think as much as I sit back and go, wow, is there something to look at here underneath the hood for the Penrith Panthers? Or do you sit back and go, they didn't lose the game? Why are we looking underneath the hood? They took a team's best shot, a team that was hungry, a team that needed the victory, and they took their blows, and they still put them away in the end. And you could see the excitement and enthusiasm as the Panthers players came together to celebrate at the end of Golden Point. But then you could just see the Dolphins just crumbling. Because whoever lost that game, you knew was going to be miserable. Because they just got done putting themselves through 80 minutes plus after Golden Point of just misery playing in those conditions. So, big victory for the Panthers. And then you wonder, even though they lost, does this kind of let the Dolphins feel that they're not far away from playing some of their best footy? You know, they still have plenty of rounds left to get back into this thing. But they've got to start. They've got to start now. They can't put any more time off. You got teams like, Parramatta's found their feet a little bit again. Manly's coming up the track. You don't want to finish bottom of the table, especially with a team like the Dolphins that a lot of people thought were going to be in the 8 this year. So it's going to be interesting to see how the Finns go forward after such a heartbreaking loss. And the Panthers are going to Panther. That's all you can say. Warriors 28, Titans 20. Man, the Waz return home, and we know how important that is, getting back to the Rumble Isles. They go out big. They get out to a big lead, and I gotta admit, right here on this show, I am a Tanner Boyd, Chanel Harris DeVita fan. These guys to me are perfect as a combination, because you have Tanner Boyd that can lead the team around the field. He can kick, he can take control of the game. And then you have Chanel Harris DeVita, who is kind of, and I would have never thought that when I watched Chanel Harris DeVita with his long hair in the back and his ponytail, doing the scorpion kick, and, just the flair he had. You could see that he probably grew up idolizing SJ, Sean Johnson. He just had that flair about him. And to be the player that he is now, he's hard-nosed, he likes to hit. It is a perfect foil for one another that these two guys are in the Habs. And it makes you look and it makes you think, what is the future in the Habs? Because Tanner Boyd does not play the same style of footy when he is in the Habs with Metcalf. It's just not the same type of flow. And that is going to be a big talking point going forward from this club. Then let's go to the Titans. The Titans, who are getting blown out of the park to an extent, never gave up. And to me, that is what Hannay has brought to this side, and that is a belief that we're going to fight to the end. Because a lot of teams would have shut off. They would have just, put the car in the garage, said it's just not our week. And they did not do that at all. They fought back. They got back. They made the score respectable. Even though I know they didn't get the chocolates, that showed you a lot. And if you're a Gold Coast Titans fan, you have to be happy about that. I know that you want to get wins. I think you know that this season is going to go and end better than the last few have ended. But they really look like they're starting to believe in the process, believe in the words coming down from their coaching staffs. Yeah, but they didn't win. And the Waz did, and that is everything. As this team continues to look dangerous, their forwards they just look strong. They look dangerous. They look violent. And they're going to be there in the end. And I'm happy to say that your Shadow was wrong because I did not have them for sure in my top 4. But yeah, I think the Waz are going to do some destruction before this thing is all said and done. Rabbitohs 30, Dragons 12. The Lutrell show finally puts the Flanagan era to bed. I hate to say it that way. You do. Yeah, listen. I told you I met Coach Flanagan, and this man that was coaching this team now is not the Shane Flanagan that I remember meeting. We're going to talk about it because there's a lot of things that have happened at St. George, and we're gonna go into our deeper dive and discuss some of the things. But I want to go right now with Luttrell. He was something special. And that's the thing I think that frustrates a lot of people about Luttrell is that you get moments like that, games like this, when he's the best player in the competition. And I'm not hesitating when I say that. There are moments, there are games when you watch Luttrell and no one is going to mess with this guy. No one can touch this guy. There's an aura about Luttrell too because I said this, what was it, a week, 1 or 2 episodes ago, when I said that Luttrell's got to stop doing stupid things that can hurt his team. And that's the other side of Luttrell that we're talking about here. And he kind of did it again when he picked up Daniel Atkinson like he was a sack of potatoes and kind of threw him into the goalpost padding. And a lot of people asked, well, I can't believe they didn't just hide him right there, that they didn't come over and hold him accountable. And if you watch it, and I've watched it a few times now because I was kind of shocked too. You guys all know, Shedheads, I'm a big hockey guy. And if somebody would do that to your goalie, do that to your star centerman, there would be problems. There'd be a lot of problems. There'd be a lot of gloves on the ice, right? And I know that the biff has been outlawed in the game, which I don't like to talk about because I have no problem with the biff. I'm a hockey guy. But if you watch, the Dragons kind of surround Luttrell. And Luttrell never once, watch his eyes, he never once gets flighty. He never starts looking around like, oh boy, I'm surrounded. He never does any of that. He holds his head up and he just kind of pushes his way out of the circle of this pack of dogs that have surrounded him like they're going to come after him. And not one guy really gives him the business at all. Their halfback is still laying there on the ground, and Luttrell walks out of there like, excuse me, and no one does anything. No one. And again, that tells you about Luttrell. Number one, the respect that he gets from the playing group, from both teams, not just his playing group, but from the league. And then that he is a force of nature, that you're not going to mess with this guy. You're just not. And yeah, so that showed you a lot in just a couple of moments of that game. But yeah, it blew me away. It blew me away that how good he is. And I've said time and time again on this show, I'm a huge Luttrell fan. He's done some things that have really angered me at times, but that doesn't take away from me how great of a footy player it is. But yeah, the Dragons, again, I think this game just showed so much of what they are. They come back, they play well, and then they just can't close. They can't finish. There's not belief in what they're doing. And that led to some things we're going to talk about. Some major changes, ending the Flanagan era and starting the new Dean Young era. So a big match in a lot of ways because of what the result ended up causing. But the Rabbitohs are looking good. And if you think that they're going up against a Melbourne Storm team that is so desperate, they make desperate housewives look desperate. Okay, I had to do it. That game is going to be can't miss television because you're going to see both teams. South Sydney wants to end that hoodoo. They want to get that first victory down in Melbourne, and the Storm cannot have that happen. It sets up for a dynamic match that we're all going to be able to take in. Broncos 21, Tigers 20. The reigning premiers do it again. And I will say, the Broncos' performance, to me, was the thing that impressed me the most. And they showed me what the heart of a champion looks like. Because with all the players they had out, and with Adam Reynolds still not being 100%, this guy is one of the smallest players in the league, in the competition. And he willed his team to victory. Adam Reynolds has always blown me away. I'm saying even when I remember him being a youngster with barely any tattoos back at South Sydney, he just has that it about him, right? He has that it about him. And we know that he's way closer to the end than he is the beginning of his career. I'm saying he's just a matter of games away from working for Fox, allegedly. But he just took that game over. Just in moments, he added his magic and his swerve. And the Tigers, at the same time that the Broncos were doing this and continuing to lose to this Brisbane team in Campbelltown, they had a great game too. You did see that Jerome Luai and Adam Dewey are going to need a game or two to get back under their belt, to get back into cohesion in the halves after Jerome has been out for a while. But for me, I do think that Benji is probably not that. He wants to win every game. Don't misconstrue what I'm saying. But this gets the spotlight off of them because everybody was trying to drink that Tigers Kool-Aid, right? And I think Benji still knows the team that he's got, but this just takes the spotlight off him a little bit because people and fans and media are so finicky. They're looking for the next hot story. And now that the Tigers have lost again, this gives them a little bit of space, right? They're not being the ad of the week on Fox League. Not every show's talking 100% foot. Not everyone's talking about the Tigers now. And that's perfect. That lets Benji get back, lets him just drive home to this team that they're not as much as probably everybody put them on a pedestal as that they were. But that they have the strike and the ability to be that type of team if they get back to concentrating. But I was blown away by the Broncos. I was so impressed by the game that they had, what they did, the way they played. And then Payne Haas going down, getting another injury. It's this team is being held together by duct tape. And it's not, Katoni Staggs goes down. It's to say that Madge McGuire likes to coach with adversity, well, he's going to get to do that because, these guys just keep falling by the wayside. And you just hope that Adam Reynolds continues to be able to come back and run out on that field because if they lose him, they're in a world of hurt. They're in a world of hurt. I don't know if I can say world that much or that quick again. But at this current time, they're still standing up. But it looks like Haas is out 3 to 5 weeks with that MCL sprain. So, again, Madge, there you go. Back against the wall. Big game against the Dogs. What do you do? Roosters 38, Knights 24. Dylan Brown's comeback game. Again, Knights fans, people of the Hunter, I know you're so proud of this team right now. They looked really, really strong in that first half, but then the second half. Unfortunately, it's two halves of footy, and the Chooks look special. The Chooks showed you in that second half of that game why some people think that they could be a Smoky to win the entire, and I shouldn't even say a Smoky, that they are a favorite to win the championship. There's a reason they brought DC in, because they thought they were just a piece or two away from being able to grab that trophy again. And that second half shows that they are heading in that direction. But they've got to put together a full 80 minutes. They've got to put together a full 80 minutes, because when they run into the Penrith Panthers, in teams that are going to be in that top four later on down the year, but especially Penrith, because they're going to have to get, for me, through Penrith if they're going to want to lift that trophy. And you cannot play bad 40 minutes and then try to throw it on late and play a good 40 minutes, because a team like Penrith is going to be blowing you out of the park with all the mistakes you made in your first half or in your second half, whatever half you decide to go to sleep on. But it looks like the DCE, Sammy, Hollywood Walker combination's kind of coming together a little bit. I really don't know if they are just kind of throwing out the number and they're just kind of morphing into what they need in that halves. But the good thing is these two guys like each other, and it is a work in progress. And if you look at Darryley Cherry Evans, one of the oldest guy, I think, at the competition right now, and he's still so fit. I'm like, this guy, his body, the way that he plays, it looks like the DCE could go another 2 years if he wanted to play 2 more years. He really does. And I think he's been re-energized as well, leaving Manly, getting out from underneath that pressure that was kind of going on there. He'd been there for a long time. Everybody's looking at him to be able to right the ship if it's going down or whatever. So, a game of two halves, it shows you, but you've got to play 80 minutes of footy, especially right now, because the Knights don't have, without KP in that team, they just don't have enough to keep up with a Chooks team that really catches fire like that. But that doesn't matter, because this competition isn't ending next week. They've got time to get KP back into form, get that spine into some type of cohesion of how they want to do it, and then go forward with it. But big victory for the Chooks. Again, they're starting to look like they're getting that confidence, and they're definitely rolling in as the hot team coming into ANZAC round. Eels 38, Bulldogs 20. Another crazy game, because here are the Dogs again, after looking like a serious title contender last week, taking the Panthers out, making the revenge tour take a break. They come out and look like, again, all the problems they had going into the Penrith game, all were back again. That they look like they had no idea what they really wanted to do. I know that the Eels are playing in front of that 86 Old Boys team. I know that team, they just kind of get it. They understand. There's so much pride with the Parramatta Eels and the history of this ball club that you wondered. And I don't think a lot of people felt that way. I didn't. You saw my pick. I didn't pick the Eels to be able to come out on top of the Dogs because of the injuries they had, the frustration you saw with Mitchell Moses with his halves pairing and how the team is working. He looked like he wanted to pull his hair off. Just pull the hair on the upper lip, Mitch. That's the only thing you need to pull. But yeah, besides that, it did not look like it was heading that way. But again, they find their legs, and what makes the game so beautiful, you just never know. The inspiration of the Old Boys, the inspiration of what that week meant to that team, the inspiration of knowing that these forefathers, these group of men that were such a dominant force in the history of Parramatta, were watching them. Yeah, that was pretty cool. That was pretty cool all the way around. And what we're gonna do our deep dive into right now. But yeah, great game. But again, it just makes you go, what is going on with the Dogs? Now, like I said, Shedheads, old Papa Shedhead took one on the chin this last week. It wasn't pretty. Yeah, I'm still icing up a little bit just around the neck area from the little bit of the clubbing I've got with some of those picks. But we say this time and time again. The unpredictability of this game is what we love, right? It's what we turn into no matter what sport it is. Like the NHL playoffs are going on again right now. We'll talk about it. The NBA playoffs are going on right now. The Spurs lose last night to the Portland Trailblazers, right? Again, you just don't know what's going to happen. And the Eels' victory, which we were just talking about, is something that to me just shows when a team starts to believe what can transpire on the field and what they can actually achieve. And it's a beautiful thing to watch. It really is. Now, it makes you, again, want to scream at the television if you're a fan of that club, because you're like, where was that last week? Where was that 2 weeks ago? Where was that 3 weeks ago? What is going on? Blah, 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 right? But it is really, really cool to watch. And it's really cool to watch if you don't have a dog in the fight, because you just kind of sit there and go, wow, this is really happening. But here it is. Like, the Dogs, they just got done beating the Panthers, a team that looked unstoppable. You heard me just 2 weeks ago saying the only team that can beat Penrith is Penrith. And I think I had circled on the map that possibly look at the Newcastle Knights up in the Hunter being the game that they might be in trouble. But I said they have to beat themselves, right? But everyone got, but some of the pundits were all saying, no. Panthers didn't beat themselves. That was all Bulldogs. But again, maybe not. Maybe your shed is calling it, because this same Bulldogs team just ran into a club that got embarrassed. The Eels got embarrassed by 42 points at home to the Titans. Embarrassed. And to find the legs and the confidence, again, that's why I think people love Riles as the coach, is he has a way of making them forget what just happened, flip the page, can't go back and change it, let's go forward. And that was the thing. The game started the way that we thought it was going to. Karaz getting that early try to open things up. But it seemed to kind of bring the Eels alive when that happened. I told you, I met the Fox in 2016. I think that was when I was on my honeymoon. 17, excuse me. When I went on my honeymoon, when I was in Auckland, and the energy that you just you felt when you met the Fox. Like, this is Josh Adokar, who just left the Tigers to an extent, was down, as Bellyache's boys, and the laugh, the joviality of the man, it was awesome. But he led by example, getting on the board with the try, and then, how should I say this nicely, disengaging Josh Curran's ribs. Is that a good way to say it? Because I don't know if Josh Curran can still take a breath after that hit. And that's the thing about it. And that's why Jason Rouse said that he is so important for the Parramatta Eels, is that the energy that he brings, and when he's going, he's going to do anything from scoring tries to doing setups to putting the lumber down on somebody. And he did that. And that is what makes him so important for that club. I know everybody points at Mitch, and Mitch is a key cog in what the Eels are doing. But that showed you everything. And when I saw him score, when I saw him hit, I said, one of these teams is really here to play. They are really here to play, and it was the Eels. Now, the guy that impressed me the most in the game, though, was Ronald Volkman. And I don't know if you guys, I've always paid attention to the Waz a little bit. I have immense love for New Zealand. Me and Mrs. Shedadamas almost moved there because of a job opportunity that she had. It's a special, special place. But Ronald Volkman is kind of had not the career anybody was expecting. Because in 2022, he came to the Waz, and a lot of people saw him as being the future of the Waz. Like, he is the new have that is going to kind of help us forget about Sean Johnson a little bit. But then within a year, by 2023, he's getting released by the Waz. So something happened in the fact where they just didn't see him having that type of, I don't know, strike, go forward, whatever you want to say. And his start to this season with the Eels was not the best because, after a couple games, he gets sent down to the New South Wales Cup. But he looked reborn against the Bulldogs. And again, this to me comes 100% from Rilesy, that he could still get the confidence into a young man that when you've kind of been up and down, you've kind of been a journeyman a lot, you've been to a couple clubs, the last thing after you get called back up, you really don't want to get sent back down to New South Wales Cup. But the performance that he put together was inspiring, I think, to even his own team. 1 try, 1 line break assist, 1 try assist, and 3 tackle breaks, and even made 24 tackles for the game. The game just seemed to slow down for him, but there was a confidence and swagger about him, which I don't know where it came from. I really don't, because he didn't have anything like that leading up to it. Maybe a week of practice where he felt really good about his game, but it just really caught me off guard, but it made me very, very happy knowing his story and what he's been through to get this shot again. And right now, this is huge for the Eels, because for the Eels to really take a step and try to get back into the 8, they're going to have to do something that's very, very important to them, and that is they've got to find a partner that Mitchell Moses is comfortable with in the halves. And right now, I think it's up in the air. Jonah Pezzit's played well at times, but the thing about Jonah Pezzit, he's a rental. He's only there for a year, and he's up to Brisbane next year. And they just got done giving an year extension to Volkman's contract. So would you not make Volkman your 6? Because you've got this guy for another year. You saw what Riles did to Dylan Brown when he didn't see him as the future at the club. So he sent him down New South Wales Cup, brought him off the bench in the hooker role a little bit. So the way that Riles's coached, wouldn't you want to see what you really have with Volkman and play him through the season instead of Jonah Pezzit, who isn't even going to be there next year? That's the stuff why they get paid the big dollars, Shedheads, these coaches, to make these type of calls. But I think the other person that's going to have a huge, huge say in this is Mitchell Moses. And if Mitch is more comfortable with Volkman and he thinks he has a chemistry or rapport with him, I would not be surprised to see Volkman stay in there. And every week that Jonah Pezzit is out still kind of nursing injury, Volkman's going to get more and more comfortable on the side. And that's why watching this next game is going to be so interesting to see what he does and how he tries to back up that performance that he had. And again, it's always a work in progress for any of these clubs of what they're doing. But after what the Eels put on the field, the way they got that crowd just totally behind them, the emotion, you saw why the Blue and Gold Army is so strong and why they're so hungry to get the results that they really are looking for. But to me, it's going to come down to that halves pairing and this team getting healthy, because them and the Broncos are the two most injury plagued clubs right now in the competition. So it's going to be interesting to see if this is a springboard to them making that drive back to the 8. Now, the problem, Shedheads, is there's two sides of the coin, which we say all the time. And as excited as the fan base is of the Blue and Gold Army, you've got that other side of the coin, Gus's boys, the Dogs, the Kennel. And right now, the Kennel's got to be scratching their head. Bulldogs fans have got to be like, really? Really? This is what we're up against now again. It's just, you just don't know what to expect from a club that can beat the reigning premiers and then lose to a team that's outside the 8 that has been struggling. It just feels to me time and time again that the Dogs almost are more excited about the drama, like player drama, like what's going on, like who's in the side this week? Is somebody not out of favor, in favor? And I'm not even a Dogs fan, and it's tiring to find out what's going on, what slant's going on, if Seraldo and Gus are on the same page. It's a lot, and it's a lot more than just footy, and that's the thing that makes it so, to a lot of them. But this doesn't help because they keep losing key points. There's big talk that Critter might be back this week, that Stephen Crichton might be playing. I think today he's actually doing a run through at practice to see how he feels, if he can check out, if he can get in there, how that shoulder's holding up. So that'll be interesting. But then for as much as they might be getting one back, they might be losing somebody else again because Jacob Carras now, with that injury that he picked up, is going to be out for a little while. So the narrative again, one comes in, one might go out. And it just makes more talking points. I will say this, for all the teams that have been in the top 4 recently, right? Your Storm, your Panthers, this team has got something that none of those teams have. There's just always chatter going on. And that they just don't feel like anything's right. And there's the tinkering that goes on. It's got to be beyond frustrating. And I don't know if it's as frustrating for the playing group. That's for them to answer. But they've got to really be going, what is going on? Because I don't think even that team thought that they were going to go into that game and that the Eels were going to pull a sneak attack and actually beat them. Again, you let me know, fans of the Kennel, Dogs fans, what you think about this situation. You know where to find me, always. Now, Shedheads, I know, we all know, the game of sports, as much joy as we may get, there's always uncertainty that goes with that too. No matter if it's, it might even be what color jersey your team's going to wear, because now they all have the third jerseys. Now I even heard the New York Yankees are talking about that they want a third jersey, the team. Well, why don't we just worry about winning first? Maybe we'll do that. Not that the Yankees aren't winning. Calm down, certain ones of you. I don't want to get on your bad side. But what I'm saying is there's a lot of uncertainty in the sport. But unfortunately, for the Manly Seagulls, the uncertainty isn't uniforms, is Tom Trbojevich's body, Turbo's body. And I don't even know where to go with this. I think we all were thinking when we saw Turbo go down on that tackle, like it was really not a tackle that any of us were really thinking anything came from. Like Tom was kind of running through, some guys were down by his legs, he kind of got turned a little wrong. And when he kind of stayed down, some of the guys who were in the tackle were kind of going, what's going on here? Like, I didn't think anything was coming. And again, he starts grabbing at the back of his leg. It was a strange moment because some people thought he was cramping. And then you find out, unfortunately, that it wasn't that at all. Once again, Tommy was down with another injury, and it was the hamstring again. This time it looks like this hamstring is going to be 6 to 8 weeks. But it's got to be just beyond frustrating. I'm saying you watched him walking off the field and the frustration that was on his face because Turbo's had such a good season. He looked like he was confident with his body. He looked like he wasn't really worried about opening it up and really striding into his running, which we know that, the guy's a freak. He's gigantic. And when he gets those twigs moving, he can go. He's got a long gait, all that type of stuff. But again, it's insane that he goes down with another injury. And this is the crazy thing. I started to look at Turbo's injuries, and I want to go through this with you really quick. 2016, an ankle, he missed a week. 2017, ankle and knee, he missed 3 weeks. 2018, ankle, he missed a week. 2019, hamstring and pec, he missed 2 weeks. 11 weeks. It's my math, isn't it? 2020, hamstring and shoulder, 14. 2021, hamstring, HIA, 6 weeks. 2022, knee and shoulder, 18 weeks. 2023, pec, 11 weeks. 2024, 9 weeks, hamstring and shoulder. 2025, hamstring and knee, 5 weeks. And now 2026, 6 to 8 weeks with that hamstring. Now, Shedheads, I'm not here to do your taxes. And if I'm doing your taxes now, you might be in trouble because unless you got an extension, the IRS is looking for you. But I'm going to do the heavy lifting right here. And I'm going to do the heavy lifting because I'm going to do the math that we're going to do. And I'm going to say something. Papa Shedda has never been asked to do math for anybody before. But I'm still going to do it for you right now. Because if you add all those up, that's 87 weeks the Turbo has been on the bench. And if you think about that, that equals to a little more than a year and over a half of game time that he's missed. That is insane to think that this guy, who's one of the best players in the competition when he can stay healthy, has lost a year and over a half of a year in game time and experience that he could be adding towards the Manly Sea Eagles. But again, he just cannot get the body right. And what makes it so sad is that he's put in all the work. He's come to the United States and tried to change his running style a little bit. He's done the things. Like if you listen to Jake talking on some of the shows this week, and he's there working early with the trainers. He's trying to loosen himself up. He's trying to put his body in a win-win situation. But he doesn't get a break. He doesn't. And just like the Manly medical staff, I don't know what the answer is. I really have no idea what the answer is. To me, and I'm going to say this again, to me the only answer to this is possibly moving out of the fullback position and going to the centers. I think his body has shown that it cannot handle the week in and week out toll that playing fullback does to the body. And he's not a small fullback. He's a big man. But the results that I just said show that it's not working. And he's trying things to make his body better. But I just think the fullback time is behind him. I think you have to find, and he's got to get comfortable playing in the centers, because wearing that number 1 is not doing him any favors, and it's not doing Manly any favors. Because listen, he may not be in the 1 position, but you're trying to tell me you wouldn't want Turbo in the centers? Exactly. So I think the only thing that I can say that I think all of us feel is that we just want to see Tom Turbo Trbojevic play a full season, no matter if he's playing fullback or playing centers. We just want him to make it through a season as healthy as he possibly can, and that's all you can say on that. So good luck. I hope he has a quick rehab and he can get back on the field sooner than later, but you got to be smart because the last thing he needs to do is re-injure that hamstring again when he comes back. Now, as we go into the 40-20 Shedheads, I'm going to take a deep breath real quick. And the reason I do that is because last week on this show I said, I'm done talking about St. George. I'm done talking about the Dragons. Until something happens that's monumental, that's earth-shaking, we're not talking about the drama that's going on with the St. George Illawarra Dragons. We're not doing it. We're not doing it here on this show. Well, Shedheads, it took a week. It took a week for us to have an F5 tornado come rolling through. Yeah, it did. A week, because it looks like the Red V is back in the headlines again, and they're back in the headlines with a story that we have to cover here on Outside the Sheds, and that is the ending of the Shane Flanagan era. And after following the Bunnies last week, the powers that be, they finally said it was enough. And I'll say this right now, and I said it a little bit earlier. I saw that interview that Coach Flanagan did with Yvonne Sampson before the game. And I think she asked him, what would be your feelings if you could get a victory? What would you feel coming off? And Flano was like, the pleading look in his eye, please, man upstairs, allow that to happen for so many different reasons. that was not the look of a confident coach. You would never have seen Bellyache give that look, Robbo give that look, Ivan Cleary give that look, Benji Marshall give that look. There was pain behind those eyes. Like, he wanted something so bad, and in the back of that, you saw that he probably really didn't believe that it was able to happen. But God, he wanted it to happen. Man, he wanted it to happen. And that's, to me, the thing about this whole story that we kind of forget sometimes is these are human beings. I know that a lot of people, and that's not me, Shedheads, feel that if you pay for tickets or if you pay for jerseys, if you pay for this or if you pay for that, that you have a right to say whatever you want to about a player, about a club, about a team, about a coach. But we have to remember these are human beings. And Shane Flanagan looked like the shell of a man. Even the coach that took over. Now, let's not even think about 2016 when they turned the porch lights off in Cronulla. We're talking about just a couple of seasons ago when he took over with the Dragons. The energy that he came walking the building with, the confidence, the swagger, all of that, it was gone. This was a broken man towards the end. And they're saying, talking to people, they said that he said after that loss that he was done. And to hear a coach tap like that, and to see, and you saw in a couple of those interviews where he was sitting up there and he was like, he didn't have the answers. He didn't know what he was going to do to fix this club. He didn't know what he was going to do next week. And then the dissension starts happening with players saying they're not going to renew contracts and they're looking to go. And after losing 11 games in a row, there's nothing else you can do but move on from Coach Flanagan or any coach, unfortunately. That's just not a Flano thing. A coach loses 11 in a row like that, you're going. And like I said, I was in Vegas. We know this. You heard me talk about this. I talked to Gutho. I was feeling confident after the performance I saw on this field. I'm like, hey, all right, maybe Flanagan's got these guys going where they need to go. But it just wasn't the case. And this decision, no matter how much I like Coach Flanagan, needed to be made. And I think, just being honest, I think it was almost as important for Coach Flanagan to be stepped down and for him to step away from this for his health and his mental health than it was for St. George to get a new coach in there that's going to help take them to the promised land. I really feel that. Because I will never get away or get out of my mind the looks on Coach Flanagan's face towards the end. But I think it was the best decision for everybody, truthfully. Now, let's flip the page now. The Flanagan era is over, and the Dean Young era has begun. There's little things that always make you remember that you're aging. And I look at Dean Young now. Now, Dean Young had hair in his head when I saw him, and that was in 2010, the first time I saw him, when he played for that Dragons premiership team that won it all over the Chooks. But he's been named. And I can't think of a better guy to be named as the coach for the remainder of a season than an old boy. A guy that played for the Steelers and played for the Dragons. He's played his entire career, 209 games for the Dragons. And like I said, he won the 2010 premiership. The last time, I hate to say it, the last time the Dragons actually were meaningful to the competition, that actually brought something to the table. That's 15 years ago, 16 years ago. Like I said, I'm not doing the math for any of you. 16 years ago. So it's been a while. But when you started seeing him doing his interviews and you started seeing the confidence that he was bringing to the table, everybody says you want your guys in there. Somebody who understands what this team symbolizes, what they stand for, and all of that. And I think that is Dean Young. And it seems by every means like he's the guy that can maybe not bring the magic that Kieran Foran has brought to the table for Manly, but he's one of them. He's their guy. And here's the thing. He has not taken a lot of time to sit back and to put his stamp on this club, because he has swung the axe and he swung it quickly. First off, he benched Shane Flanagan's son Kyle, and some people that are fans of St. George have been wanting that to happen for a while. I don't think I was throwing the blowtorch at Kyle as much as a lot of them were, but he benches Kyle Flanagan, and he gives rising star Cade Reed the start people have been calling for. Now, unfortunately for Cade Reed, he's getting that start in the ANZAC Day tussle against, the hated Chooks for St. George fans. But they still get their guy. They still get the guy that they hope is the future in the halves position, that can start to get them out of this doldrum that's going on. That was a big and that was a bold call. But like a lot of people have said, and I have to kind of agree with that, well, why wouldn't you make that call? This guy has not really done what he is, Kyle has not kind of lived up to that whatsoever, and you have to make those tough calls at times. But then he did something that I didn't see coming. He comes in and he gives the walking papers to Michael Ennis. And I don't know if that was because he wanted to make sure he was the only voice in the room, and everybody knows that Michael Ennis has aspirations to be a head coach for a club or an organization. Cool. I understand that. But wow, that to me kind of caught me off guard. But, I understand too. You can't have a guy who you think might be undercutting what you're saying. And there was talk that might have been players that were thinking about leaving the club because Mick rubbed them wrong, as well as Coach Flanagan rubbed them wrong. So if that's the case, you have to cut him. You have to cut him loose. I'm a huge Michael Ennis fan. But we know he has a deep connection to Shane Flanagan, and because of that, you've got to make this tough call sometimes, and that's what Dean Young has done. I don't think myself, and I think I've said this time and time again, think that a lot of the problems at St. George are downstairs, which means in the sheds, coaches, all of that. I think most of the problem is the upper administration. I think the powers that be that are making a lot of these calls, some of the board, I think they are because if you look at it, the turnover that they've been having at St. George is insane. This is the 7th new coach at the club since 2011. All right? 7. They've done things like in the past of not letting coaches pick their starting lineup. Like, what? I threw some coaches' names out not too long ago, right? Robbo and Bellyache and Wayne Bennett. Can you picture a board telling those guys who they're going to play this week, and not the guys that are actually watching the practices and putting the guys? That right there shows you that something's off. Something's askew. And that might be the reason. And what I feel deep down in the bottom of my heart is the reason that's going on. You've always heard that there's a little bit of a power struggle between the St. George side and the Illawarra side. It just, the power brokers have to all get on the same page if this club really is going to pull out of this freaking tailspin. They've got to support, they've got to come together, and they've got to see what is the best interest of this club, not the best interest of one side of this club. That is one. 2, they've got to get their pathways right. They've got to start getting some of the talent they have in the junior grades on their side to come up and come through there. Because right now they're trying to buy players. The Valentine Holmes, no matter how much Val was important to the Sharks back in the day and a couple good seasons with the Cows, has just been a shell of a player that he once was. We know Clint Gutherson does not have that extra gear that he used to have. And that's why, to me, it's a great move putting Tyrell Sloan in the fullback position right now. But those type of buys that they've done just have not come to fruition and parlayed on the field what they've needed to have happen. So the Pathways program to become a Dragon and this board has to be rectified. They have to be fixed. And that's why a lot of people feel that Dean Young might be the guy that can do this. The problem for him is the upcoming schedule is it is a murderer's row. And for him to get through that is going to be crazy to see. But like I said, it's baby steps, and it starts with the first week, and that is against the Chooks on ANZAC ground. We're all going to be watching. But what happens with this soap opera that is the St. George Illawarra Dragons? It's going to be fun to watch. Now, I'll say this, and we're going to abbreviate this. I was going to talk a little bit more about this, but I'm so excited because this is my favorite round coming up, Shedheads, and that is ANZAC round. My father did 28 years in the Air Force, 14 years in the Marine Corps. My grandfather fought in the South Pacific on my mom's side of the family. I understand about service. I understand about sacrifice. And to me, the first moment in 2011 when I was subjected to seeing ANZAC Day, ANZAC round, and watching everything, the pageantry, the passion, the sacrifice, the remembrance, the emotion, everything that just is all put into 80 minutes on that field, but everything that leads up to it. And I think I am so blessed that I've been able to, because the first time I sat down and I watched the last post and watched my first ceremony like that for the Dragons and the Chooks, it brought me to tears. It brought me to tears because, I don't know, man, it just hit me. It hit me right in the heart. It really, really did. And I think one of the reasons that it did so much is that over here in the States, we just don't have that. We have our days of remembrance, right, during the calendar year, but nothing that really goes off the way that ANZAC Day does in Australia and New Zealand. And that's the thing about it. I just, and I'm so blessed. And I started telling you how blessed I was before, that I got to, with Mrs. Shedadamas, spend an entire ANZAC Day in Gosford, but also in Sydney, because we were up. I was telling you about almost dying in Darwin because of humidity. Well, we flew back to Sydney on ANZAC Day that morning. We got in it was an overnight red-eye flight. I think we took off from Darwin like 11 o'clock at night or 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that, something crazy, right? And we landed in Sydney at like the break of dawn. And we had to take the train system all the way up to the Gosford, Wyoming area, right? But we're in downtown Sydney. And I was blown away by seeing all of the military retired, present in their uniforms at the crack of dawn, all put together, all in their uniforms, all looking their best, all in the train systems. The mateship, the brotherhood of people coming together and celebrating already. So we take the train all the way up. We get to Gosford. I think it was, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning. And I have not slept, right? I'm still going. I just haven't gone to sleep. I maybe napped for 20, 30 minutes on the plane. But then we got to go down and watch the parade in downtown Gosford, and then got to go to the remembrance ceremony in the park there. And I got to spend time with Dom and Sonia and their family, Savio, Tuscany, Mills. It was a special, and I was around people that I loved, and it was powerful. It was very, very powerful. And then you got to go and then I got to go with the guys and hang out at the RSL. And we really don't have RSLs here in the States. And just seeing, there was just such an energy inside in that building. It was awesome. It was incredible. Watching footy, watched all the footy games there. Had a few schooners, then a few schooners more, and then a few schooners more. And then we finished it up with a barbecue at the house later that night. It was, I've been there quite a bit. It's a place that I think someday I'll retire, no matter where it's at down there, I will. But it just is one of my favorite days that I've ever spent. Now, as I go into that long diatribe, about why ANZAC Day is so important, we also just get some incredible footy. And it is nothing better than, no matter if you hate them or love them, watching the Chooks and the Dragons go toe to toe like that is just something special. It's just magic all the way around. And the NRL just does it right. I love watching the ceremonies, and every time I hear the last post, it just hits me right in the gut. And it makes me happy to see people that have sacrificed and have given that much for their country, for their friends, for their mates, for their families, being honored like that. And so, NRL, there's a lot of reasons that I love you. There's a lot of reasons that sometimes you make me pull my hair out. But the game of rugby league will always have a strong place in my heart. And them doing the ANZAC Day round, to me, is it's the cherry on top of the cake, personally. So I hope you guys are ready for it, because I'm beyond excited for it. It is going to be something special. And hopefully your Shedadamas turns it around and gets back in the winning track. But as we always say, lest we forget, Shedheads, lest we forget. So as we go on a round date, let's go into these picks. Thursday, Raiders coming to the 8th wonder of the world, Leichhardt. I'm taking the Tigers. I think they get a bounce-back game. I think it's going to be a close game. I think it's going to be a high-scoring game. But I've got the Tigers winning to start off the round on Thursday. Friday, Sharks versus the Cows up in Townsville. I think as bad of a performance as the Cows had, I think they bounce back. I think they turn around. I think they get back on the front foot. And I think they pull out a close one over the Sharks. Bulldogs versus the Broncos up at Suncorp. Again, another team that got embarrassed against a team that is really undermanned. I've got the Bulldogs making a statement. And let me say that again, making a statement in a victory over the Broncos. Saturday, the game that we always talk about, the Roosters versus the Dragons. We get to see the beginning of the young era. But I'm sorry. It's Chooks all the way. I think that it could get nasty. But, hey, that's why they play the game. Ask the Eels if getting blown out is always on the scorecard, because it might not be. But I think the Roosters take care of business. Dragons versus the Waz in the Rumble Isles. I know the Dolphins kind of woke up, but I think the Waz are back on track. Like I said, I love that halves pairing. I think it continues, and they get the victory. Rabbitohs versus the Storm. This is a big one. This, to me, might be the best game of the day. I've got the Rabbitohs. I think they break that hoodoo. I think that they go down to Melbourne, and they I can't believe I'm going to say this. They make it 6 in a row in the loss column for Bellyache's boys. I got the Rabbitohs. Sunday, Panthers versus the Knights. Okay, it was a couple weeks back, but I said it was going to be a tough game up in the Hunter. But I think the Panthers, after getting that victory in Darwin, have kind of got themselves back straight again, and they get the victory over the Knights. And finally, Eels versus the Seagulls. Fortress Brookie, I'm going with the Seagulls. I think that Fosball makes it 4 in a row, and the Seagulls stay on their streak. So we go over it again. I've got the Tigers, the Cowboys, the Bulldogs, the Roosters, the Waz, the Rabbitohs, the Panthers, and the Seagulls as my picks for the week. For the gun of the round, I could have gone a couple different ways with this, but to me, one guy and one guy only. Luttrell Mitchell, 4 tries, 2 for 6 conversions, 1 penalty goal, 178 running meters, 4 line breaks, 1 line break assist, and 11 tackle breaks. A machine. Let me say that again. A machine. Luttrell Mitchell was to get the Bunnies on the right foot and back in the win column. Shedheads, you heard me go on my deep dive about ANZAC round. If you haven't got a chance to watch the Dragons and the Roosters or any matches during ANZAC round, please find time to get to watch a game. Get to a game if you can, because I know I have definitely some Shedheads down under, and take in that last post, the pageantry that's ANZAC Day, and remember what it's about. Remember, It's about remembrance and being with the people that you love, and be able to take that in, because I'm very, very excited about it. And I will be on the road for it, but I'm still going to be catching matches. I'm going to bring my little TV, or as I should say, my iPad for it. So, but until next week, please remember the importance of this round, and kind of bring it into your lives just for this weekend. Just for this weekend. I'm not asking you to do it forever. Stay out of trouble. Don't get caught. This has been Outside the Sheds. I'm your host, Corey Jackson. Until next week, see ya.
And that was another fantastic episode of Outside the Sheds with Corey Jackson, talking all things NRL and all things sports. So please remember to smash the subscribe button and share this with your family and friends, and show them what Australian sport is all about.